The news that dropped on Tuesday, September 23rd, caught just about everyone off guard. The Houston Texans made the shocking decision to release safety CJ Gardner after only 3 games with the team. Think about that for a second. They had just acquired him this offseason. They had just restructured part of his contract to guarantee him almost $7 million. And yet here we are, just a few weeks into the season, and he's gone. That alone tells you something had to have gone down behind the scenes, because you simply don't move on from a player like that so quickly if things are going smoothly. When the notification hit the timeline, the first reaction across the football world was disbelief. After all, Gardner had been traded from Philadelphia to Houston in exchange for offensive lineman Kenyon Green and some late-round pick swaps. On paper, Houston was investing in him, restructuring his salary into a bonus-showed commitment. That kind of move usually signals that the team is not just expecting production, but they're also planning on the guy being part of the foundation. Yet, 3 games later, the entire experiment went up in smoke. Digging into it a little further, the picture becomes clearer. Watching the film from his short Texan stint, there were noticeable issues. In particular, during the matchup against Jacksonville, he blew an assignment late in the game that set up a huge Jaguars play and ultimately led to their game-winning score. It wasn't just one play, though. There were repeated lapses, and what made it worse is the buzz coming from inside the building. He wasn't taking accountability for those mistakes. Reports surfaced that there was friction in the locker room, that he wasn't thrilled with his role, and it even reached the point where he might have asked for a trade himself. If true, that's a complete breakdown in trust between player and team. And here's the thing. This isn't the first time we've seen this movie with Gardner. For all his talent, his versatility, and the swagger he brings to the defense, there's always been that shadow of inconsistency off the field. The Eagles once moved on from him, brought him back, then moved on again. The Saints, who originally drafted him, had their own issues. Now the Texans, who just invested heavily in him, threw in the towel after 3 games. That's 5 teams in 7 years making the same kind of decision. At some point, as the saying goes, you are who you are. And that's what makes the idea of a reunion with Philadelphia so fascinating and so polarizing. On the one hand, you cannot deny the impact he had when wearing midnight green. Twice he's been part of Eagles rosters that stormed all the way to the Super Bowl. His numbers were impressive, with 12 interceptions in just 28 regular season games for Philadelphia. His versatility is incredibly valuable. He can line up at safety, slide into the nickel corner role, and create turnovers that swing momentum in big games. Fans loved his energy, his emotion, his swagger, and the way he played bigger than his frame. But the downside is just as obvious. Injuries have been an issue, and his availability has often been in question. Beyond that, he hasn't always meshed with the culture Philadelphia prides itself on building. The Eagles emphasize chemistry, unity, and minimizing distractions. With Gardner, you never quite knew when a fiery social media post or an internal clash might pop up. For a front office and coaching staff that values stability, that's not a small concern. Coaches don't want to wake up to headlines about their safety throwing shade online. There's also the question of timing and development. Right now, the Eagles have a young player in Andrew Mukuba stepping into that role. He's shown flashes, he's improving every week, and he brings many of the same traits: ball skills, toughness, the ability to defend the run and cover ground, without the extra baggage. Pairing him with Reed Blankenship has created a young, energetic tandem, and the coaching staff has been clear that they're excited about the future of that duo. Bringing back Gardner could stunt Mukuba's growth, which is something the organization is unlikely to risk after using valuable draft capital to get him. Still, the speculation isn't going away because the NFL has seen plenty of strange reunions before. The initial thought was that league rules might block any return this soon after trade. Some pointed to language suggesting a player couldn't return to his original team until 2 seasons had passed. But insiders quickly clarified that those rules don't actually apply here. Gardner is eligible to return to Philadelphia if both sides want it. That leaves the decision entirely in the hands of the Eagles' leadership, which is where things get interesting. Nick Sirianni, when asked directly, didn't slam the door shut but gave the kind of answer that makes you read between the lines. He praised the current safety room, highlighted Mukuba's development, credited Blankenship's leadership, and even pointed out the contributions from other young players like Sidney Brown. Essentially, he was saying, "We like what we have, we're happy with the group." If you decode that, it's a polite way of signaling that there's no real appetite to revisit the Gardner Johnson chapter, at least not right now. Meanwhile, insiders like Adam Schefter also poured cold water on the idea. He acknowledged that Gardner Johnson could technically return, but he didn't view it as a realistic scenario. His reasoning was simple. If the Eagles were ready to move on once, then again a second time in March, why would they reverse course now? And when you add the Texans' quick release to the equation, the optics become even worse. 5 teams in 7 years is not an accident. That's where the intrigue lies. On talent alone, Gardner Johnson is an appealing option. His ball-hawking ability can change games, his versatility allows defenses to disguise coverages, and his competitive fire lifts teammates. But the off-field concerns, the durability questions, and the history of teams walking away from him raise red flags that are hard to ignore. It's the classic NFL dilemma. Do you bet on talent and hope the environment keeps the player in line, or do you avoid the risk entirely to protect the culture you've worked hard to build? And so here we are, with the Eagles fan base split down the middle. Some are saying, bring him back. He makes plays, he's proven it in Philly, and this defense is better when he's flying around the secondary. Others are saying, we've been down this road before. Twice. Let the young guys develop and keep the locker room drama-free. What makes this debate even juicier is the fact that the Eagles are contenders again. Adding a player like Gardner Johnson could be the difference in a tight playoff game. But adding him could also be the spark that disrupts what is otherwise a very balanced and stable team. That's the tightrope the Eagles are walking right now. Do they value the proven playmaker who has helped carry them deep into the postseason? Or do they trust the young core that's already showing signs of growth? The truth is, Gardner Johnson's career is a microcosm of the NFL itself, where talent is undeniable, but culture, accountability, and fit often determine whether that talent can truly thrive. And as we've seen time and again, sometimes the biggest plays don't happen on the field, but in the decisions made behind closed doors by the front office and coaching staff. When the dust started to settle after Houston made their move, the conversation quickly shifted from shock to speculation about where Gardner Johnson might land next. It's not every day that a starting caliber safety, one with real production and playoff pedigree, suddenly becomes available on the open market in September. That alone made fans across the league perk up. But the noise in Philadelphia got louder than anywhere else because of his past ties to the team and the memories he created during those deep postseason runs. If you rewind to his time with the Eagles, you remember a guy who wasn't just filling a spot in the lineup, he was making his presence felt in big moments. 12 interceptions in less than 2 full seasons with the team is not something you ignore. There are stretches where he looked like the most opportunistic defensive back in the league, baiting quarterbacks into throws and coming away with the football. He thrived in Jonathan Gannon's system. And when you talk about defenses that feed off emotion, his swagger and fire were contagious. That energy is why fans can't help but entertain the thought of another reunion. But the problem, and it's a big one, is that history doesn't just disappear. The Eagles already had chances to keep him long-term and decided not to. It wasn't purely a money decision. It was about fit, consistency, and the ripple effects that came with having him in the locker room. As much as players loved his energy, coaches and executives were cautious about the headaches. He wasn't always aligned with the structure of the organization, and when things spilled on his social media, that's when it became a bigger issue. Philadelphia is a city and a franchise that lives under the microscope, and if you add unnecessary drama to the mix, it can spiral quickly. On top of that, this front office has shown repeatedly that it prefers to invest in stability. Think about the kinds of players Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni emphasize. Tough, accountable, team-first guys who fit into the culture as much as they fit onto the field. That's why drafting Andrew Mukuba and watching his development closely has been such a big storyline this season. They don't want to block his path with a veteran who brings question marks. even if that veteran is capable of producing splash plays. Reed Blankenship has also stepped into more of a leadership role, and those two together represent the future. Bringing Gardner Johnson back risks unsettling that progress. Now, could circumstances change? Absolutely. Injuries have a way of rewriting the script in the NFL. If the Eagles lose a starter in the secondary and suddenly find themselves vulnerable against high-powered passing attacks, Gardner Johnson sitting out there would be tempting. His ability to slide between safety and nickel makes him one of the few players who can provide immediate answers at multiple spots. In a league where depth is tested every week, that's no small advantage. And when playoff seeding comes down to 1 or 2 games, sometimes teams do take risks to chase the edge. But if you listen carefully to what's being said inside the organization, the messaging is consistent. Sirianni praised the current group, highlighted their growth, and stressed that he's excited by what they're building. Adam Schefter's reporting echoed the same sentiment. Possible, yes, but not realistic. It's a way of putting the rumors to rest without completely shutting the door, leaving a sliver of wiggle room in case desperation strikes later in the year. That's the balance every coach and general manager has to maintain. The other part of this story that can't be ignored is Gardner Johnson's reputation around the league. 5 teams in 7 seasons is a pattern. Coaches and front offices talk. Word travels. When a player keeps bouncing from roster to roster despite having obvious talent, it raises concerns. Is he difficult to coach? Is he unreliable in the system? Does he clash with teammates? Whatever the exact answers are, the fact remains that multiple organizations have decided they were better off without him. That's a tough stigma to shake. And yet, in spite of that, he remains one of those players who can get fans buzzing because of the highs. Remember that Super Bowl run when he was flying around, chirping opponents, and backing it up with big plays? That's the version of Gardner Johnson that Eagles fans fell in love with. The version that feels like the missing ingredient when you're thinking about taking on Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or any other elite quarterback in January. For every lowlight, there are just enough highlights to make the conversation irresistible. That's what makes this situation so complicated. It's not as simple as yes or no, keep him or avoid him. It's a constant push and pull between the upside of his playmaking and the downside of the distractions. Between the immediate boost he might give the defense and the long-term growth you risk by altering the roles of younger players. Between the memory of what he once did in Midnight Green and the reality of why he's no longer in Houston today. The Texans' decision to cut ties so quickly speaks volumes. They weren't winning. They were trying to establish a new identity under a young quarterback and a new coaching staff, and yet they chose to eat the financial loss rather than ride it out with him. That's not a move you make lightly. It suggests the issues were more than just blown coverages or missed tackles. It suggests a level of discord that they believed was beyond repair. And if Houston, in a rebuilding year, didn't think it was worth keeping him around, that should set off alarms for teams that are chasing championships. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be shy. Share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In what could easily be described as the NFL's most shocking move of the year, whispers are swirling across the league that the Philadelphia Eagles have somehow managed to secure Micah Parsons from the Dallas Cowboys. While no official confirmation has been issued, sources close to team operations hint that a blockbuster deal might already be in motion, sending shockwaves not only through the NFC East but across the entire football world. Parsons, widely regarded as one of the premier defensive talents in the league, has been a cornerstone for Dallas since his arrival. Known for his explosive speed, relentless pursuit, and game-changing ability to pressure quarterbacks, Parsons has transformed the Cowboys' defense into a fearsome unit. Speculation now suggests that the Eagles, who have long coveted a defensive centerpiece, may finally have pulled off what seemed impossible, convincing Dallas to part ways with their star. Inside chatter indicates the discussions have been intense, with the Cowboys reportedly demanding a significant package in return. Philadelphia, however, is rumored to be going all in, willing to trade multiple draft picks and possibly even a key starter to bring Parsons into the fold. The move, if true, would represent a seismic shift in the balance of power within the NFC East, a division already known for its fierce rivalries. Fans and analysts alike are buzzing, trying to imagine how Parsons' dynamic presence could instantly elevate the Eagles' pass, rush, and defensive schemes. Social media is ablaze with speculation. Some fans are ecstatic, envisioning an unstoppable Philadelphia defense, while others are stunned, questioning how the Cowboys could even consider losing a player of Parsons' caliber. Commentators are already debating the potential ripple effects, how rival teams might react, and what it could mean for the Eagles' chances of returning to the Super Bowl. Though nothing is official, one thing is clear. The NFL rumor mill has rarely moved this fast. If the Eagles do manage to land Micah Parsons, the narrative of the entire season could be rewritten overnight. For now, fans are left on edge, monitoring every headline, every cryptic social media post, waiting for confirmation of what could be the biggest coup in recent league history. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Philadelphia Eagles, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.